John doesn't subscribe.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Jurassic World Evolution 2 and to the channel and to our Jurassic Arizona 2045 park build. This is episode 2 and we're going to be building a main street, which is actually something, even though it's commonly done in parks, I haven't built a main street in a very long time. And even though it's only episode 2, my computer's already starting to get mad at me over the piece count, which the piece count was already almost as high as our entire last park build in just 2 episodes. Probably out of 8 or 9 it's looking like, based on my plan for the park, which is now somewhat more formed, so after this I kind of know what we're doing. But instead of just a main street, I want to do a little bit of stuff with the path, which you guys know I don't particularly like doing detailed path work. But, you know, I thought I needed some kind of detail here, and I definitely wanted this big circle in the center where most of our shops are, and then a street that runs up and down to where our pinnacle building would be, which is usually either the Jurassic Park Control Center, the Visitor Center, or the Innovation Center, but I did something a little bit different this time, and kind of combined a couple of different buildings for a pretty cool thing. And I wanted to do some more flowy path work here, kind of to keep it in tone with the first episode, which I feel like every park I build is very different from one another in how they look, and this park definitely holds up to that. Everything from the pathwork to the decoration ideology is very different from anything else I've built before, so I kind of have to form a new style as I go through the build. So here I was experimenting with a couple different things, and normally I use the amphitheater as an exhibit, but what I'm doing here is I actually put the visitor center in the amphitheater, and the amphitheater is going to serve as our main hotel. We're also going to have some luxury hotels that we'll build in episode 4, but this is going to be our main hotel, which I think is pretty cool because it's not too far a walk, and I know it kind of probably would be annoying for the guests to have to walk down the main street to get here, but you know, carrying all the luggage and stuff, it's fine though. We're not being totally realistic with this park anyways. For example, there's no way for the staff to access the Dimetrodon habitat that we built today. But it doesn't not every park build has to, and for this I just want to enjoy building this and take it pretty simply, which is what I've been doing, and it's been just so fun to build. Here I'm doing a little bit of work on with monorail structures, which is not something I normally do. Usually it doesn't look very good, but in this park, for the modern architecture look, and also because we're using so many Jurassic Park stuff here anyway, I want to bring back a little bit of that uniqueness and modern architecture, which is one thing I don't like. Like, I never use the Innovation Center because that's the building from Jurassic World, and here I'm using the amphitheater, which says San Diego, and the Jurassic Park Visitor Center, so I need to add at least something unique to it. And what I'm doing here is just these big monorail structures off to either side of the main street. These are just for decoration. These are supposed to be some kind of like big sculptures that would be in the park, just these monoliths you see in the distance, which I think are actually pretty cool, and they're going to end up as part of a habitat. And so anyways, for the polls for the species in this episode, we got Dimetrodon won the poll on the channel, and Nigersaurus won the poll on the Discord, so we're building for those two today. And I already know what we're building for next time also, which is a build I'm pretty excited for. So here I'm just placing some amenities and other buildings around this main circle, which I think this is going to help with foot traffic. Instead of having this one big street that everyone has to, you know, move around in this one lane, here this kind of helps make it a little more easy to access the place where you want to go if we have these different circles that you can just go between to reach where you want to go. And, you know, we also have viewing opportunities for 2 habitats integrated into this viewing gallery. One of them is the Nigersaurus habitat, and one of them we will be building next episode. This build was nearly 6 hours as compared to the last one, which was 4, and this is on 800% speed, by the way. Last episode was on 700%, and I want to keep it under 1,000%. You know, this is Evolution 2, not Prehistoric Kingdom. So I think this is the first fence I placed in the park. No, I already placed some by the viewing galleries, and well, we didn't use any fences last build. No, that's not true. We did put one on the back of the image. No, I don't know. This is the first habitat that uses fences, and it's the Dimetrodon. But I did want this to be kind of similar to the Ceratosaurus in how it looks. Just this thing you can walk all the way around and look into. And yeah, I did actually spend quite a while customizing these shops to look unique. More than I usually do. I usually tend to randomize them until I get a combo that I like, and then change a couple of colors. But on all these, yeah, this is on 1,400% speed, the customizing the shops, because it's kind of slow. I like doing it because I think it's a huge boost to my park, and I can't stand like the defaults being there because I can tell they're the defaults. But yeah, I put a good bit of thought into how these shops work and what they're selling, why these are the shops that are here. And you know, in the main street, we'd really have like 100 stores, not 6, but it's close enough. We can't place that many. I didn't want to do a gigantic main street and take up the entire map, because this map is only, I think, like 2 square kilometers. So it's not a huge map. I don't actually, no, it's not even 2 square kilometers, is it? I don't remember the size of all the maps. And so yeah, just more rocks on this path because I did have to delete some that went up to those viewing platforms earlier, so this kind of replaces those. And just to surround this isn't like a effective barrier, but obviously we have to have something here. So the guests could still stick their hands through the fence here because the planters, due to the curved path, I had to use a planter that's extra small, so there's still gaps, which I filled with benches, but you know. Again, not everything's going to be hyper-realistic in every park all the time. Hopefully in our next Prehistoric Kingdom build, I'm going to focus a lot more on the realism and logistics of how the park works, which is going to be very fun. For something like this, I've just had so much fun doing this build so far. Done 10 hours of this build in a week, and yeah, it's just been super fun. I was just putting those paths there as placeholders, and we're not going to decorate the area around those. Those are still kind of just placeholders, but I wanted to make sure they aligned with the main street and that you got a decent view of them from the entrance area. And that viewing dome that I just put in the center, obviously that's not to view any dinosaurs. The idea for that is that's basically a restaurant for really rich people to sit there in the middle of the main street and look around and see the other people go to the different stores and stuff. And I thought it'd be kind of cool, just spot. And now I'm decorating the Dimetrodon habitat. Trying not to place too many rocks because at the end of this build, Small Desert Rock 1, we have like 1,700 of them already. And it's only episode 2, so... And I did want this to lead into the swampier section, which it is a desert, so it's not going to be a totally swampy section, but we got lots of cycads and water. Maybe leaning into the oasis look a little bit. So yeah, I did just have to refill this cliffside with rocks, which I could have done last episode, but I wasn't sure what would be placed here. Because when I did last episode, I really did not have an overall plan for how the park would look. Now I do. And I know what we're building in pretty much every episode now. So yeah, here we get to start actually decorating the main street, which was probably about 3 hours of this build. And I started with just this central garden, kind of work my way out, using the amber planters because, you know, we only have so many planters and a lot of them are very lush, which is fine, and I like them, but I can't use just the green everywhere in the desert. So I think the amber planters and the rock planters are nice, but there's some places the rock planters just don't work, and it's nice to have the options of both. And the amber planters are also pretty cool with the lights compared to the rock planters. This kind of spiny plant, not the cactus one, I don't know what plant that's called. It kind of looks like an aloe vera plant. I used that a whole lot in this park so far. I think like 300 of them, because they're kind of taking the place of the whatchamacallit plant. The tropical plant, the last tropical plant, the little one that we use all the time, because that one doesn't work on this map. So this is the best thing we have for a small hitbox space filler, but it's not very good at it anyways. So yeah, you'll notice I use the temperate trees in the pots there. That's because the desert ones are those weird spiny short things that I don't like, and you can't turn to be symmetrical because there's 3 of them. And then like the taiga ones are just those sickly yellow trees, and I can't use palm trees in this build. So the temperate ones work okay, and I guess it's a little continuous because we've implied that whoever's building this park placed a lot of temperate trees, or grew a lot of temperate trees. And yeah, so these 2 areas there, I didn't really know what to do with them, and I end up changing the path that's there, just making them into seating sections. covering up the weird amenity path clipping on the corners as best I could with those concrete barriers. Not really much I could do, to be honest. And I think these concentric circles end up looking pretty good, especially once I do this alternating pattern with the fountains and the rock planters, and once it's fully decorated. But I will say the outer path using the facility path, I actually meant to replace that at first, and then it was kind of too late, and does end up kind of thin and looking somewhat overgrown, but it's fine because the guests would spend most of the time in the circle, and that also discourages too much foot traffic just standing outside the stores, and would help, move people through this area. So I needed a good display at the front because I don't want you to just walk up to the main street and see the restroom signs. This is supposed to be a really grand view that you just arrived in the park, you saw your first dinosaur, now you turn the corner and there's just so much more stuff, and it's supposed to just stretch off into the distance, and you have the amphitheater, the visitor center, tons of lights. We're doing a lot of light work in this episode. And so yeah, I needed to make sure it's something cool here, so I did these fossil walls that we use, the Jurassic Park walls, a lot. You'll notice I'm doing the fence here. I had a hard time configuring this fence where it wasn't obstructing the view, but still blocking off the ugly parts of the amenities. And yeah, just concrete barriers. What is there to say about concrete barriers? There's like 400 of them, something like that, in the park. And on the outside, I just alternated between these planters. I didn't want to put just a row of the same planters because we were doing that too much in this build. And the boxy ones are too tall, but then I don't like using just the curved ones because they cover up too much of the path. So I think that created an okay balance. You'll notice I put way too much thought into just which planter should I place here. And anyway, these aviary perches, which is something I actually tried to do last episode, but I think got cut, which I did cut a lot from this episode, and it's still over 30 minutes. So, those are supposed to be modern art sculpture type things, like a sort of sculpture garden, which will have other plants in there too. But I thought that it didn't look good when I first placed it, but I actually kind of like how it looks in the end. Just brings more height to this because we couldn't really use any elevation on the main streets. And especially, I think, once we have our giant aviary with the glass domes behind this to the right, and then off to the left. I'm not sure what will be there. I think our sauropods will be there. And yeah, there I just did the fighting Spinosaurus skeletons, which I have to put in every part because it looks so good. I don't remember who did that first. I remember seeing that in a Best in Slot video where he was touring another park, maybe a year ago. And so yeah, I had a hard time lining this too because I didn't want to just do concrete barriers for your grand promenade, which I did end up mixing the concrete barriers with the planters, and I think that's okay because otherwise this path would have been too narrow if I'd used planters. And something I tried to do in several of these gardens was place water, but there's never enough room. Even these, it was very close on the ones on the side where the sculptures ended up going. I could almost fit water there, but unfortunately not. So yeah, there's a lot of concrete barriers. Oh, and there's actually more than 400, aren't there? That's already 500. And that's only halfway through this build, which, yeah, we are almost halfway through this build, and all of the buildings, no, all but most of the buildings are already placed, and we're not even halfway through the build because this isn't a building game. It's just a decorating game, really, at this point for builders. I think in the first episode we placed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just six buildings. Yeah, 6 buildings in a 4-hour build. And that's so different from where Jurassic Evolution 1 was early on in its years, because you just placed buildings and path, and then you released your dinosaurs, and obviously those parts weren't as good, but it makes me wonder, how different will Jurassic Evolution 3 be near the end of its development from this? I'm a little worried that even if we don't have modular building, which I am 90% certain we won't, but there's always a possibility. Yeah, but anyways, even without modular building, if they keep adding detail, how long is it going to take to build parks? Because this park's probably going to take about 40 hours, and it's not a big park. This is on, this map is a third the size, maybe a third the size of a square map, and there's people who build way more detail than I do. It's going to basically be pick your park, this is your entire park for the lifespan of the game. and most people aren't going to have patience to build good sandbox parks, and they're going to feel like their parks aren't good seeing other people's parks who do just have 500 hours to sit around to build one park. So I'm a little interested to see where that will go. But you never know. Maybe there won't be that much increase as there was between 1 and 2. It really depends on what kind of mechanics they include. But in general, I think people will get better at this game. Like, most of the skills from Evolution 2 will transfer over to Evolution 3, not my specific knowledge on what planters go best where, but because we'll have different planters, of course. Well, almost certainly. So, it'll be interesting to see where that goes. So, anyway, I added in our Dimetrodon, 3 of them, kind of like the Velociraptor pack in Jurassic Park. I used 2 of this really ugly green-brown skin, which I didn't mean for it to be that ugly because I don't know all the skins. And then I used the really beautiful blue, brown, and white skin. So, for that contrast, but I didn't mean for the green ones to be that ugly. I'll keep them, though. It's fine. And, they look like a swamp creature now. Just filling in this extra space with little seating section stuff. Again, I didn't do a lot of detailing towards the outside of this circle and this build because that's all going to depend on the builds later on. And I think I've done a good job leaving that open because that's something I always have tried to do in my parks in the past, is just close everything off. And when I started making YouTube videos into this episodical formats, that became kind of held back the parks in many ways. But I think this has helped to just leave spots open. So anyways, yeah, just creating this fence because we're going to have a habitat on both sides. And this is a canyon for our episode 3 build. Just leaving that there so you know it's there. And I put 4 zip lines on that side, but I didn't want zip lines on the Nigersaurus habitat. It didn't really make sense, so I went back with the viewing platforms again, which I wasn't sure about because we used the viewing platforms last time, and they're not my favorite of the attractions in the game, and I kind of don't like using repeating attractions unless I have to, especially since they're both serving as a viewing platform. It's not like I'm using the same building as a different thing. But I ended up just putting it there. Didn't really have anything better to put there. So I ended up leaving this section unfenced because the terrain's going to go down, and you'll have a chance to see the Nigersaurus up close, and you'll see how we later when we decorate the habitat. Which the Nigersaurus habitat, I'll go ahead and tell you, I really don't like because I didn't know what to do with the back of the habitat because of the episode 4 is going to build the other side of whatever's there. But I had to add in the dinosaurs to get the cinematic, so I ended up with just this. You can see that ugly fence, and all the decoration was really rushed and ugly. There I was just counting the rooms of the hotel to think about how many people can we fit in this park, and do I really need an entire another hotel section, which, yes, I do, but I'm not going to build one because I don't like building hotel sections. So, anyways, I was just making these entrances to the amphitheater a little bit fancier, even though I do really like the entrance that's there, and it looks like a very realistic building. Decided to make that a little bit more cinematic, just so we can have the cool lights, really. So yeah, these concrete barriers could potentially get changed on the other side, but I did a lot of symmetry in this build, which is not something I normally do, and it didn't turn out well because there's some stuff that's not lined up that should be, which really frustrated me, which is why we don't build symmetrical stuff normally. Well, I don't. A lot of people do great symmetrical stuff with path, and just everything is aligned in this really cool way, and sometimes stuff looks over-symmetrical, but sometimes they do it really well. I don't. And I don't think we're going to have any more symmetrical builds in this park, thankfully. Maybe that's another reason why I didn't do the Main Street for so long. I can't remember, when was the last time I built a Main Street? I don't do it because everybody did a Main Street, so I was like, to make my park stand out, or whatever, I'm not going to have a Main Street. I don't really need a Main Street, it's kind of boring just to have to stretch a path. But I decided to return to some stuff I haven't done in a while in this park, like the Mega Aviary, like a proper staff section. I don't think I built a proper staff section since... I think the last one I did, outside of my horror builds, which don't count, was like that, my Christmas park that I built the year before last, I guess. Yeah, my Christmas park of 2022 was the last time I built a proper staff section, which is kind of crazy. But I haven't built that many full-size parks since then, somehow. So now it's time to do rocks and plants I'm just filling these gardens, which I think helps make the main street stand out a little more, because, you know, just don't want too much path, but I still have to make it feel like you can fit a lot of people in here, which I think I balanced okay, except, like I said, on that outer circle with the staff path. So there was just testing to see what paleofoliages generate the most ground cover, and I just tend to go with the cycads, because they look the coolest in this biome, at least. So yeah, more reliance on just the temperate trees, which I think actually having these two different trees that are still similar helps frame this even better, and I do think this ends up looking really good, this view from the front of the main street, and it would be super cool as a guest. Which I guess is the whole point of, well, not the whole point, but a large portion why I play these games is just, you know, these places don't exist, but what do we want to experience as a guest? I had a hard time placing rocks here, because there was not a lot of space, and, you know, still had to leave room for plants, too. I just imagine there's no hitboxes in Sandbox in Evolution 3, that would be perfect. There are a lot of annoying hitboxes here with the amphitheater and such. The amphitheater has a giant hitbox. It's not as bad as the aviaries, but... So, yeah, I kind of had to fill in... There were a lot of empty spaces here due to you have square buildings with a square footprint being placed around a circle. Lots of weird spaces. Thankfully, the temperate plants and the fluffy bush to the rescue. And... yeah. Again, I'm mixing in some alpine trees. I think I overdid it a little bit in this park, in this build. But there are a lot of pine trees, and not just pine, evergreen in Arizona and those western states. So I use the staff centers, which is something I don't see a lot of people do, but I think they're really good guest buildings in general, because when you look closer at the building, they're actually really well decorated, particularly the Biosyn and Jurassic World ones, and they're very modern looking, so they worked on this, and they can just be miscellaneous guest buildings. I didn't want just the amenities because they have the same footprint and it's just over and over again. Even if you customize them, you can still tell that they're generally the same building. And, so, yeah, rocks. I used more of the medium rocks here because I wanted to leave some space for plants. Which I did not do successfully. If you're still here, that's awesome. 10 minutes left of the video. And, I'm actually just so excited to continue this build. It's been so fun so far. Episodes will probably slow down after next week. Hopefully we can finish this whole park before December, if it gets finished at all. As I mentioned earlier, my computer was already making a lot of noises, being very loud. And when I tried to use the demolish tool, the bulk demolish, to see how many pieces we had some lag going on there. But I don't think it'll be too much of an issue, at least until near the end of the series. And, you know, if that starts to become a problem, we can just build larger habitats. Less guest sections, have this concentrated guest section around here, which I do want to build larger habitats anyways. All my habitats tend to be pretty small. Like, by footprint, my parks are, 70% guest section. Which is a lot more than most people's parks. So, and guest section take way longer to decorate. Like, the actual, which I do need better habitats too. But, the main street took, I think, 2 hours to decorate, maybe, probably more than that. Probably 2.5, maybe even 3 hours of the build was just decorating the main street. While, you know, to actually decorate the Dimetrodon and Nigersaurus habitats were, 15 minutes. But, that's because the Nigersaurus habitat is terrible. And the Dimetrodon was a small habitat, so there wasn't really much I could do in the way of details because I would stop them from being able to move around if I did too many individually placeables. And I wanted to be a swamp enclosure anyway, so there wasn't really much I could do except place a couple of alpine trees and the cycads. Yeah, we just have a lot of plants and rocks to do here because I left so many of these spaces as planters, especially around the amphitheater because, again, as the hitbox as I said, you can't really get path very close to the amphitheater, but you can get rocks and plants pretty close to the amphitheater. So, I put those rocks there actually because I couldn't put a fence between the gaps and the viewing platforms because they're so close together, which, you know, it's not a problem for the Nigersaurus, but who knows, maybe a guest could squeeze through there. So just went ahead and put the rocks to make it feel like it's closed off a little bit. Here we do our small rocks, trying not to delete the monorail pillars, which also have big hitboxes. And, you know, this is probably the only time I'll use the monorail pillars as monorail pillars. So I guess I can go ahead and say what I'm gonna build for next episode, because if you're still here, you've watched 25 minutes. You've listened to me talk for 25 minutes. So next build, I am doing a build that was a suggestion, I think, on the marathon final episode of Island Park, so like, what was that, like 6-7 months ago? There was a suggestion to build a canyon for Concavenator or Carnotaurus, which was the secondary poll for the species for next episode, voted on my Discord. As you probably expected, Concavenator is demolishing the poll. It's like 100, I think it's still 100%, which is good because I want to build for Concavenator. So next time we'll be doing whatever wins the poll on my channel, which I think will be Ouranosaurus, almost certainly, and also Concavenator. So here, just doing the surroundings of the habitat, I need to make sure not to place too many rocks here because I was keeping the fact that, you know, this build's only a tiny portion done, and yeah, we've already placed so much. This actually, the build's probably 25% done, honestly. We have 10 hours and 2 out of probably 8 episodes. And by footprint, a huge area of the map has been filled by just this build, which I forgot how small these maps are. Which, you know, I haven't built actually a complete park on a square map, except for islands, which the Island Paradise Park, but that only uses a small footprint of the map. So I tried to build one once, it crashed after 35 hours in the save file, and it's inaccessible. And I tried to build a high security area that filled up most of a square map, never finished that because I didn't like doing it and there's too much symmetry. So yeah, the rock work I think in this habitat is fine. It's just everything else needs to be changed and should be changed between episodes, and then the habitat will be improved once we build the luxury section that's on the other side of this fence. And yeah, I wanted to have like a little bit of a foresty vibe with this habitat, you know, just, and have walking trails and stuff just meandering through the forest, and you have these sauropods just marching around, but I just placed too many of the same tree, and then I didn't have enough room for the hitboxes, and I was just done with the build, so I kind of dropped all semblance of detailing. Like, you'll notice I didn't even go into this rock structure with rock 1 because it's probably going to get changed anyway. And also, I just didn't want to, and you're not going to be able to see it. So, yeah, I started using the Psycat just to fill it in since I didn't do the small rock, and mixing in some ground textures. And what I'm doing here is my idea to get the Nigersaurus to come down to this little area where the guests can see them more clearly is that these 3 trees are of the kind that they like eating. Maybe the modern plants are really hard for them to digest. Maybe that has to do with them being artificially created. They have a hard time digesting tough plant matter. So these specially grown trees are ones that they're able to digest more easily and really like eating. So even though they might graze in the other plants, they're going to come back here a lot. Which also kind of work as another way to have a herbivore feeder in the game. And I just surround them by rocks to differentiate them from the ones that I actually use as decoration, which are the same pieces. So yeah, that is pretty much the end of the builds at 800% speed. This build took a very long time, probably the longest single build I've done in Jurassic World Evolution 2, and this is definitely going to be my largest park by hours logged. Now I'm just recoloring the lights, still sticking with a mostly yellow and orange theme, but I pulled in some more interesting light colors. And since that was too repetitive, I just did some basic white lights and such. This viewing dome would be a pretty cool place to sit and eat. Obviously the amber planters have to be orange. I did some green there to lead into the luxury section, which is probably a theme we're going to continue. And here, these lights leading up to the entrance, I alternated the colors on these, which ended up looking pretty good, especially since I angled them, which I don't think I've seen anybody angle those before. And I know now why, because it's really hard to get them lined up. But here, I alternated the blue and red, which I think looks really cool. And even though I don't want to do too dramatic stuff with the lights in this park, I might bring back some in just a few spots, just to make it stand out. Now we're at the end of the speed build. There won't be any walking tour just because of the runtime, and we'll have a tour at the end of the series, obviously. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and stay tuned and subscribe to the channel for the next episode.